It's a common sense recap of the big stories. It's Katz and Cosby on 77 WABC.
So many things are happening in Europe. The election in France, the elections in Great Britain, the elections, other places too. Ambassador, what the heck is going on in Europe?
Well, I think there's a lot of turmoil, but it doesn't all point in the same direction as some people would say. In the United Kingdom, the Labour Party swept to a very large majority in Parliament, turning the Conservatives out. But the Conservatives had been in for 14 years, and there is turnover in Democratic governments. It's going to be interesting to see if the Labour Party can keep itself together, given the divisions it has. But they've just taken office. We'll see what happens in France. Emmanuel Macron, the president, called a snap election for Parliament, and the result was three relatively large, relatively equal-sized groups, no one of which has a majority, and forming coalitions among any two out of the three seems almost impossible. So Macron could have put France into a state of gridlock, which would make it very difficult to have much of a role outside of France itself. In Germany, the ruling coalition is in deep trouble, and there's a lot of discontent all around Europe, but it goes in a lot of different directions. I think what it means is a weaker Europe in the near term as we go into our own election in November.
Now, I understand in one of the big plazas in Paris, there was more Palestinian flags waving than French flags.
Yeah, there have been a lot of immigration problems in France, as in many other European countries. That was a big issue in the elections, but I don't think that issue is going away. And I think this is something Europe's got to confront. They haven't wanted to before, but it's a problem. Even Macron recognizes it. And but now, without a majority of his own party in Parliament, which he had before the election, he's going to have real trouble, I think, putting his policies into effect.
Is France doomed? Has the European community determined yet that open borders doesn't work?
No, they haven't, and it's a real problem. It's one reason the German coalition is in trouble. It's why you've got conservative governments now in places like Greece and Italy after a number of years because the people there are concerned about it. It's something that the Europeans criticize the United States for our effort to prevent illegal immigration, but their populations see it just as much of a problem, I think, as ours do.
Ambassador Bolton, I want to ask you also about NATO because, of course, President Biden is meeting with all these NATO leaders now, a couple dozen, and it comes on the heels where everybody's watching, what he says and what he does, cognitive skills after the debate performance. There's been some, private reports that are coming out there that world leaders are very nervous. What are you hearing? And should they be, obviously, because the world sees it, not just our allies, but sadly our adversaries.
Well, that's 100% right. And just before we started here, Biden was speaking to the opening session of the NATO summit, and he's reading a speech from a teleprompter fairly forcefully. I don't know, it'll be a 10, 15-minute speech, I suppose. He'll probably get through it okay. That doesn't mean his problem is over. I think what the American people saw during the presidential debate is something that had been speculated about for over 4 years, and it just turned out to be true that a lot of this had been covered up. And to me, it's not a question of campaigning or a question of politics. This is a question of governance. In any administration, the most precious asset is the president's time and attention. And if the president's not on duty 24/7, country's in trouble. And that's what we face. And I think the American people understand that.
By the way, did you see this report, Ambassador Bolton, where Biden went to bed early? It just came out today because obviously it's on the heels of what's going on with the NATO meeting now, is that the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz was supposed to meet him. This was at the G7 summit. And apparently, and it was even booked early to accommodate President Biden's sleeping schedule. And, he said he wants to go to bed early. And then suddenly the Secretary of State Blinken shows up and Scholz is like, here's the German Chancellor going, wait, I thought I was meeting with the president. And Blinken, according to this report, said, no, sorry, Biden went to bed early. That apparently this has been going on. And this was 2022, you guys. This was 2 years ago.
What, 6 o'clock?
Yeah, look, I don't know about that story, but I can tell you that this year at the G7 in Italy, Biden ducked out of a dinner that Giorgia Meloni, the head of government of Italy, hosted for the other G7 members, as is typically the case, and just didn't go to it. And it was very inadequately reported in the American press. And I asked a reporter at a prominent New York newspaper, why didn't you mention that? And the response was something like, well, he does that all the time. I mean, that is the kind of lack of coverage that for 3 years since Biden's been in the White House has helped cover up Biden not being on duty 24/7. You know, I don't know what the Democrats are going to do. Maybe they'll jump off the cliff like lemmings because they can't bear the thought of standing up to the cult of personality they face in the Democratic Party. But if Trump wins in November, his victory speech election night should start off by saying, I want to thank Joe Biden and the Democratic Party.
Yeah, right. You're right. Craig Eaton.
Ambassador, I'm thinking that we should be saying a vote for Biden is really a vote for Kamala Harris for president, because there's no way he's going to make 4 years. I don't even know if he's going to make it till January. But
I thought Nikki Haley had a great line during her campaign for president. She said, look, in 2024, we're going to elect a female president. It's either going to be me or it's going to be Kamala Harris. Yeah.
But if we got that message out and started to scare the American people that she could be our president, I mean, that's a scary thought. You know, we could win some of the Democrats and the independents.
Yeah, look, I think the Democrats right now are in total disarray. They benefit because I think there's a natural inclination on the part of Republicans and independents as well as Democrats not to embarrass the president with our best allies in the world at NATO attending a summit in Washington. But when this is over on Thursday, I think it's going to start up again.
Yeah, I think so for sure, too. How concerned, and I guess from your perspective, Ambassador Bolton, you've been in the room with all these world leaders when there's some very sensitive discussion. How important is it to have a president who is very cognizant, too? I mean, when I sit there and I look at this, I'm thinking, oh, my God, if I'm Iran or Russia or all these folks, they're looking at, wow, this is an easy time.
Yeah, look, I think one of the things that Vladimir Putin took into account when he invaded Ukraine in February of 2022 was the fact he had met with Biden in the summer of 2021 in Geneva, and they had, I think, 4.5 hours together, and that's because of the translation. It takes time. Here's Vladimir Putin, experienced KGB officer, evaluating Biden in real time as he sits in front of him. And I think that interview, combined with the catastrophic withdrawal from Afghanistan, said to Vladimir Putin and the Russians, we can do what we want in Ukraine. This guy isn't going to stop us.
Yeah, and then as we heard even at the debate, President Biden said, nobody died under my watch, and then, of course, forgot the 13 U.S. service members who were killed. Kabul, that was heartbreaking. Yeah. Absolutely heartbreaking. Well, Ambassador John Bolton, thank you so much for joining us. Such an important topic.
Thank you so much, John.
Hi, it's Lou Dobbs for Priority Gold, America's precious metals dealer. These are volatile times with high inflation, soaring debt, wars on multiple continents, and rising financial stress. Central banks are buying gold to diversify their reserves, so are many Americans. Call Priority Gold and find out how precious metals can help you diversify your portfolio. They're highly rated and happy to help. Call 1-866-303-6357 or get a free gold guide at PriorityGoldGuide.com. That's PriorityGoldGuide.com.